Long before matches, ferro rods, or chemical accelerants, Neanderthals mastered a fire-making method so reliable that it functioned in cold, damp, wind-heavy environments where modern tools often fail. This was not friction fire and not accidental ignition. It was a deliberate spark-based system built on geology, practiced daily, and refined through survival pressure over tens of thousands of years. For serious historians and survivalists, this method matters because it reveals how fire was produced consistently without manufactured components, and why that same logic still works today when modern gear breaks, runs out, or becomes useless. This is the Neanderthal spark trick, and it deserves to be understood as a system rather than a curiosity. How Neanderthals produce sparks without steel or technology. The core of this method lies in striking iron-rich stone against flint. Neanderthals commonly used pyrite or marcasite, minerals composed largely of iron sulfide. When struck sharply with flint, tiny fragments of iron shear off and oxidize instantly in the air, producing hot sparks. These sparks are not decorative. They burn at temperatures high enough to ignite properly prepared tinder. This is fundamentally different from modern flint and steel. Steel is an iron alloy engineered for spark production. Pyrite is raw geology. It fractures and sheds iron naturally when struck, making it one of the earliest spark sources available to humans. Archaeological sites across Europe show, this consistent pairing of flint tools with pyrite nodules. These nodules are often worn smooth in specific strike zones, which really indicates repeated, intentional use. So, why did this method work reliably in Ice Age conditions? Well, Neanderthals lived through glacial climates that were marked by cold, wind and, honestly, pretty damp environments. Friction fire methods really struggle under these conditions. Bow drills and hand drills require dry materials and sustained motion, which, as you might imagine, becomes quite difficult with numb hands and moisture-soaked wood. The spark method, on the other hand, bypassed these limitations. It required only a sharp strike, just minimal movement, and could be performed rather quickly. Sparks could be generated even when fuel was scarce or wet, as long as, the tinder was properly processed and sheltered. This explains why spark-based fire actually predates widespread friction fire evidence in so many regions. You know how tinder preparation mattered more than the spark itself. Neanderthals, they did not rely on just random dry grass. Evidence suggests they used processed plant fibers, shredded bark, dried fungi, such as tinder fungus, and possibly even animal hair, mixed with fibrous material. The key, really, was increasing surface area and creating a structure that could catch and hold a spark long enough to smoulder. The spark, it did not create flame immediately. Instead, it created an ember. That ember was carefully nursed, folded into the tinder bundle, and gently oxygenated until ignition occurred. This is, in fact, the same principle used later with char cloth, but without any textile processing. Now, modern users trying out this ancient method should, above all else, focus on the quality of their tinder. Drying it thoroughly, shredding it finely, and, even storing it close to your body, these steps really do help replicate the advantage our ancestors once had. The striking technique itself, you see, was controlled and entirely repeatable. This certainly wasn't just random smashing of stones together. The flint edge was kept sharp and clean, while the pyrite was held at a slight angle. The strike was glancing, not direct, shaving off hot particles instead of simply crushing the mineral. This approach conserved precious material and, importantly, made the sparks more consistent. Experienced users could actually produce sparks with minimal effort, even using just one hand. That sort of efficiency really mattered, especially in cold environments where wasting energy could be downright dangerous. Practicing this technique today does require patience. Beginners, more often than not, strike too hard or at the wrong angle, ending up breaking the pyrite instead of shaving it. But, skill develops through repetition, just as it did tens of thousands of years ago. This method can still be applied today without any need for specialized tools. Pyrite, for instance, can still be found in many regions, though it's often mistaken for just a decorative stone. Flint, or chert as well, remains widely available. With just a bit of basic geological knowledge, a modern survivalist can, in fact, recreate this system entirely from natural materials. So, this method becomes especially valuable when, modern fire starters fail. Ferro rods can crack, lighters can freeze or run empty, and matches they degrade over time. The Neanderthal spark method, on the other hand, has no moving parts and no consumables beyond the stone itself. It also serves as a really practical backup skill when steel tools are unavailable. Even a modern knife edge, to be honest, is less effective than pyrite when the steel quality is poor. Now, it's quite common for modern people to underestimate just how advanced ancient fire technology really was. The idea that prehistoric humans simply relied on luck or had to constantly tend to their fires really misses the mark and honestly ignores a lot of evidence. Neanderthals, for instance, weren't just stumbling upon fire by chance. They actually transported fire-making kits, carefully selected particular minerals, and prepared tinder with real intention. Fire was something they controlled, not something that just happened by accident. Understanding this really reframes early humans as engineers of survival systems, not just primitive wanderers. Their solutions were, optimized for their environment, and honestly, that kind of optimization still translates even today. So, what does this technique actually teach us about resilience and knowledge preservation? The Neanderthal spark trick, for instance, shows us that the most reliable survival skills are always grounded in fundamental physical principles, not just manufactured convenience. Oxidation, heat, airflow, and material structure. These things haven't changed in 40,000 years. Learning this method, it's not about simple reenactment. It's, about understanding how humans managed to survive when, frankly, failure meant extinction. That kind of understanding still matters, especially wherever conditions strip away the comforts and reliability of the modern world. If you value deep historical insight paired with real-world application, I urge you to support the preservation of this knowledge. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor, share this guide with fellow history and survival enthusiasts, and help ensure these ancient proven skills remain alive for future generations, who, one day, may truly depend on them.